Hello, my name is Frank Hadley, and I'm 95 years old, and I'm one of the founding members of Namoi Cotton. Mr. Kale and I were traveling in the car after being at a cotton conference a few hundred miles away, and we got to talking about an article we had seen in the paper about Australia wanting cotton farmers. We were quite interested because they were paying a real premium for a price, and I was in the Navy in World War II, and Australia had a great reputation. They were friendly, spoke English, and the girls were good looking, and so it caught our eye, made us want to come over and have a look. I planted that first crop of cotton, and then I went back to get my family, and Paul came over with his family, and he harvested that. When we came here, the only cotton gin was in Brisbane, which we had to call our cotton to Brisbane, and that was, we knew, just totally impractical. And so one of the first things we did when we planted cotton was to start a cotton gin here.
I'd never try to set about doing what my dad did. It's just too big a feat.
Mr. Kale and I formed the Namoi Cotton co-operative in 1962.
Was formed obviously for the needs for ginning post-farm gate and for developing a source of germplasm pre-farm gate. And those needs were absolutely critical, but they weren't the only ones, because we had no source of supply of insecticide, pesticide inputs. We had no input of machinery supply from dealers. They were used to supplying livestock needs and some dryland wheat needs. Cotton needs were just not on their radar. And as a collective, we were always going to be able to achieve a lot more, a lot faster than we were as individuals. And so the co-op was absolutely relied on in those first full decade or more to establish all of that so farmers could go about being farmers. In the meantime, Oscot joined the fray 2 or 3 years later. Queensland Cotton reinvigorated themselves, and the three of them collectively, while seen absolutely as competitors in the industry, would not widely be known that they were actually working very hard together to form an industry.
Like, being involved in the cotton industry since '88, it has a bit of a standout point with most other agricultural industries, being that people were willing to share information when we first started. We had no idea about cotton when we first started. The ability for the sharing of information amongst growers, it's unique to this industry. It does not happen in other industries of which I've been involved in.
We didn't know anything, and we got plenty of help from guys who had grown it north of here.
We grew wool for years, and we've always had cattle, so those industries have always sort of just been fairly stagnant, whereas the cotton industry has always been a very vibrant industry and very progressive.
So in the 1980s, the Australian cotton industry started to come under fire in the media.
Well, we had airplanes spraying. About every week you were spraying your cotton for heliosis control. So
from 12 to 15 sprays back in the late 80s, early 90s.
The need for that advocacy is increasing rapidly through the late 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, where we were being portrayed as something other than what we really were, albeit that a lot of things the industry was being accused of were founded in truth. The fact that they used way too many pesticides, they were wasting water, and just generally practices were not as sharp as they should have been. The industry could easily have been collapsed by 1998 if we had not developed Bolgard, the genetic modification to control insect pests within the crop.
So one of the greatest things about the Australian cotton industry is they've always gone about solving their own problems themselves.
If the cotton industry decides it's going to do something, it sets about to do it correctly and then just does it.
The My BMP program was set up by Cotton Australia in 1997.
It's our responsibility to have high standards. The people we sell our cotton to require us to have high standards. The public to end users, and to the industry itself to have the highest level of corporate governance that we can have on the farm. And the My PMB program delivers that in a very good way.
I believe another great thing of the cotton industry is that we're very open to change and quick to adapt to new ideas.
I think the two biggest changes in the cotton industry on a sustainability standpoint is the massive reduction of chemical use through the introduction of the GMO, Monsanto/Bayer technology over the years, combined with the massive improvements in water use efficiency, from 0.8 of a megalitre of a bale 20 years ago to today between 2.2 to 2.5 bales per meg.
One of the biggest changes we've found here is automating all our irrigation system. It's just taught us to use water a lot more efficient than what we ever did before.
So one of the biggest changes for me has been the advent of Bollgard cotton. Not only because it's stopped the immense chemical use, but it's meant we've been able to use a lot more tools like releasing beneficials from drones and tree lines along riverbanks and around the farm to benefit our environmental outcomes.
But if you want to just talk about environmental, we've come from using truckloads of pesticides to using none as on this farm.
And it's changed the industry forever.
So in the early days when we were growing cotton, there was nearly only one variety and the yields were that 3.5 bales to the acre.
Originally CSD was a part of the Namoi Co-op. They split it off the cooperative, and that's been probably the greatest success story in the Australian cotton industry is the development of CSD, the research and development around the variety trials.
I think Australia's probably got the best cotton in the world, and so our cotton is sought for, and our varieties are sought for.
One of the real strengths of the industry has been that growers have been part of the decision making around the scientific studies and research done in the industry, and that's really meant that it's been grower owned and grower felt and grower understood.
Well, through all those developments, including the new varieties, the water efficiency, the Bollgard, the Roundup Ready.
All of that has led to massive increases in yield, it's led to really significant increases in quality and a much better environmental outcome.
I think the biggest change we've seen in my short career is the round bale picker. It was a massive game changer. Like, this thing turned up with a round bale on the back of it, six wheels, 4-wheel drive, weighing 30 tonne.
When I saw that, I thought that was such a wonderful thing.
I have never seen an engineering feat of any machinery in any industry in agriculture like the John Deere round bale cotton picker.
Cotton industry used to be very labour intensive.
Human capital in every industry around the world is facing challenges, none more so here in Australia and in agriculture. And it's a challenge that we need to address, and maybe on a worldwide scale, having exchange programs with Northern Hemisphere countries. We need to think outside the box.
What excites me the most about the future of the cotton industry and farming in general is the technology side.
It's opening up new industries. It's generating new businesses. It's attracting different people with different skill sets.
The technology we use today compared to 10 to 15 years ago is extraordinary. And their famous saying is that 80% of jobs in 2030 aren't even invented today. The types of jobs and the types of people will be young people, potentially gamers that are really good with technology. Automation's coming in both tractors and spray rigs. So those machines will need to be maintained by different types of mechanics than what we've had in the past. Our challenge as growers going forward is to tell positive stories. We've got a sustainable industry. What we've achieved in both water and chemical reduction is astounding. The power is now with the growers.
And so now we're at a point where on our own farming operation here, we have not used an insecticide in a cotton crop for the last 2 seasons on any field. And that is only achievable by the development and research and technology that keeps coming through this industry.
The people who use our end product that we grow are demanding to get closer to us They want our data, and our data will become the most powerful resource that we have going forward to tell a positive environmental story.
I feel we have entered a knowledge-based economy. Data is knowledge, knowledge is power. If we embed data into our fibres, our cotton becomes very precious when feeding the needs of the downstream supply chain.
What's exciting me in the next 5 to 10 years is the sustainability story and the traceability story. The next phase of our fibre trace journey is involving other growers, once again information sharing of what we've been able to achieve in the last 3 to 5 years through our farming practices and understanding soil sequestration and capitalising on that by tracing that story through fibre trace and getting our cotton out to the rest of the world.
Fashion needs to provide customers with guilt-free purchases. As an industry, that responsibility lies with us.
It's been an incredible journey for us. It's been extremely rewarding in many, many ways. And people ask me what I do, and I'm so proud to say I feed and clothe the world. What do you do?
Seeing the way cotton has grown and developed, the cotton farming has grown and developed, it makes us very proud to have been a part of it.
It is an amazing industry, and I just cannot wait to see where are we going to end up by the time my time's up. I do not know.